is what we need upon us. Let them come together with the unity among us. Unity, it's a unity. Yana, this a good world, you know what I'm saying?
Umoja ni nguvu, utengano udhaifu, tukisimama.
Hi guys, welcome. So first I'll just let everyone introduce themselves and any short or brief message you'd like to share.
I'm Theo Dumont. I'm a managing partner at Alta Global Media. We are a marketing PR management company that also produces. And I'm also the co-founder of the Holly Shorts Film Festival. 19 years, Oscar qualifying fest.
Hello guys, I am Kenny Gravelis, co-founder and chief creative director of Gravelis. We are a creative agency out of Los Angeles, and we primarily do marketing for TV and film, everything from Creed 3 to Black Panther, Wakanda Forever to Transformers right now. And we do a lot of our clients at Netflix and Amazon and Apple, and we've been around for 23 years. So that's who we are.
I am Bernard Bronner with the Bronner Brothers family out of Atlanta, Georgia, and we're a 77-year-old company that the claim to fame is we do one of the world's largest hair shows every 6 months in Atlanta, Georgia. We also make a line of product with the BB brand that is sold worldwide, and we also do Upscale magazine, and we're proud to be a sponsor of this event here today.
Hello everyone, my name is Moses Babatokpe. I'm a co-founder of the Film House Group, owners of Film House Cinemas, the largest cinema chain in West Africa and third largest in Africa, and Film One Entertainment and Studios, the biggest theatrical distribution outfit in West Africa, and aggregators to Netflix, Prime Video, distributor of the highest grossing Nollywood films, amongst other things. Great to be here, and hopefully we can share some knowledge.
Johnny Wimbery, I just got drafted to the 2023 lineup right now, literally 5 minutes ago, so I'm honored to be on stage. Motivational speaker, author, serial entrepreneur, debuting my new movie, being viewed here in Cannes. Super excited. So I'm new to the movie industry, so I'm gonna be learning on stage while I'm with my homies.
So I'm gonna have to start with Moses, so you guys don't say because he's my Nigerian brother, he has to run soon. So, so I'm gonna cross the line here. Hi Moses, good to see you always. Last time we sat down like this was in Cameroon. Always good to listen and learn from you. So my first question to you would be, being that you are the fore of the drive to take African cinema to the world, from Film One. You guys started from mostly a cinema, to now we're talking SVOD. How have you been able to navigate the pitfalls in creating packaging for the world in a language that translates and to make your marketing and everything else easier?
That's a very interesting question, and also a tricky question, but thank you. The last 3 years, as with so many people, has been a big learning experience for us, because the market fundamentally changed. As we know, the pandemic was a big driver of that. We, before that, had been experiencing exponential growth in the theatrical sector, and a lot of things we'd done, intentionally was to create a viable, local theatrical market that, would enhance the value of our films and then, build out, the value on other, revenue streams. But in the last 3 years, streaming became, really prevalent, and a lot of the world became exposed to our content, and we had to rethink the way we were positioning and marketing a lot of these films. And I would say some of the key learnings for us, for example, subtitling became very, very important. for us to capture a global audience, even though a lot of people would argue that subtitling can be distracting. But we found that we were able to include and get people more interested in our content by, getting subtitling right and using it as part of the promotional, tool. So if you were normally, releasing a trailer or a teaser before without subtitles, you do them now. And I just think for us, releasing films, even though we're still very much focused theatrically, we still think there's a big, growth potential in that market. It's 218 million people, less than 80 cinemas. There's a lot of potential. We are very deliberate with the way we release films into the market. We release films, yes, to do well locally, but to be ready for global consumption. So in our minds, we're always thinking, once this film is done from cinema, let's remember the global audience. So, as we're getting it produced, we're thinking, 360. We're ensuring how can the market lend itself, the marketing, and packaging, like you said, and promotional work lend itself very well beyond what we're doing theatrically. And those are the key things that have happened now. Of course, we moved from just co-financing and co-producing films to, creating films fully ourselves. And now we're doing between 12 and 16 films a year that we co-produce, and we then release another 20. So we're doing quite a lot in terms of, Nollywood output. So it could come across like it's a factory work, but everything is done methodically, but with the global, market in mind. I think I'll stop there in terms of like what we've had to evolve and what we had to do.
Oh, great. Next out, talking to Theo. You're with Alta Global, and I happen to be under the agency as well. So with post the lockdown, appetite for content has really opened up. People are willing to try other content from other regions, same as the representation for talent. Do you find that there's been any change or shift in the way you package your talent, especially as we speak about diversity now?
Changing the way we package the talent in the U.S. The eyes are open a little bit more, so that's good. That's good for us. We on that side of the world are driven by streamer subscriber growth, and so that's the current battle at the moment. So if that's not happening, then they don't want to. They don't want to talk to you. So we've seen shows explode on the streamers, sometimes as surprises. And so those surprises drive the marketplace. And so their eyes are more open to new voices and to new people. So that's good for us because we've been doing international for years. And our counterparts, and you could say competitors, but we call them collaborators, they're just starting to look elsewhere for new talent and new people. But they're finding it's not that easy because it takes time, it takes investment, it takes relationships. And we're just fortunate enough to have that eye. I mean, it's me and my business partner, Steven, it was in our DNA, literally, We've been coming to the markets for decades, and it helps. And, in times like this right now, we're facing a big situation, as everyone knows. It's the strike right now. And so it's difficult. And you had a hint of the strike before, and you had our other companies in the U.S., looking over the fence to see can they acquire, and some of them doing it, some of them acquiring companies, and that they feel that would help their business as far as development quicker and whatnot. But yeah, listen, it's bottom line, it's good for us that shows can explode. The streamer thing, they're still trying to figure it out. I feel every day even before the strike, there's a lot of layoffs, and it's a challenging marketplace, but I've seen it's cyclical, right? This is not, I've been doing this a long time. I was in-house at MGM, and then we had a strike, and that was in the early 2000s. There was a strike then, and they had to find a new solution. It was the explosion of reality television, right? Before that, it was explosion of format. So thank God for us in our business as creators, people want to be always entertained, and thank goodness now they're starting to open up to new voices, new faces. But it's kind of like what Jimmy said before. It's like Akimbola is, we build it, let's do it, and then dominate. That's all we can do. They'll follow.
Okay, great stuff. Kenny, you're a graphic designer. There's more to designing a successful package than just making it noticeable. What other factors do you consider while you create stuff for your clients?
Yeah, I think that, we're in a special time right now. Let's think about it. There's never been as much content, available to us as there have been at this particular time. So with that being said, it's like more important now than ever for your project to stand out, for your project to have, I think you could all say right now, there's like 10 shows that we all absolutely want to watch, but for some reason have not yet watched because, you can't catch up. So that means there has to be, what is that thing that allows that one show to say, I have to watch it, right? And that's our job, basically, at our agency, which is how do you make marketing become conversation? And, sometimes you have the combination of having a really huge movie star and a great concept. Like for Creed, for instance, Free, we had Michael B. Jordan with no shirt on in the corner, with, you can't run from your past. So that idea, that concept got people excited, got people working. Of course, we have Michael B. Jordan. But the reality of that also is you also have to have content makers that understand the importance of marketing. And I think that's where there's been a really huge shift. More directors, filmmakers, producers are becoming way more aware of what is needed and the importance of having the right imagery, and when we're shooting, when you're on production, actually having good photo shot, whether it's a small independent film or something from Marvel. It's just I think the importance of that has become, so crucial. And I think also the other thing that's happened is because of streaming, there's less theatrical. So what's happening is, people care, our clients, for instance, which are like the Netflix and the Amazons and the Apples, they care just as much about what something looks like on their platform, in this horizontal box than they do just as the movie poster. It's if you look at what's happening in the movies right now, it's tentpoles that are getting really those big wins pre-COVID, right? It's the Spider-Mans and the Top Guns, but the smaller films, they're having to survive and really not off theatrical anymore. So, that streaming money needs to be a real thing. So that campaign has to be able to rise above. So I feel like we've had more pressure from all our streamers to make marketing materials that stand out. But it's a very competitive landscape, and you really have to, spend the money where it's needed to make the difference. And one thing I would say about especially independent film, please, for all independent filmmakers out there, do not have a photographer for your production, at least for one day, just to shoot and get great photography. Just because, trust me, by the time you go to sell that project, you're going to see the massive difference being able to make materials that look actually professional when it comes to selling your product. So
that will be coming from sets.
Yes, exactly.
Not just the studio.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, please.
Can I add something real quick? It's interesting. We have a couple hats. We would do publicity promotion, and then our other hat is developing and selling, pitching, right? Like everybody else. But what you just said is just something, a crucial point in our business, and I've never seen that before, right? Like you said, it's the not only is the poster art, the imagery, but also the on-brand. There's two sides of it, right? The on-brand on Netflix, what that image looks like of what you're selling. So not only does the visual have to be beautiful, what the streamers are saying is, I need a recognizable face. I don't want to buy it if I don't have a recognizable face, because the viewer has to see, oh, that's who? Boom, click. So I think that's just interesting. Maybe that existed before in another format on a billboard, but now I have fingers to click. Yeah. So it's interesting.
Okay. I'm Mr. Bernard. How has this affected your work? I mean, going from the hard copy days now into the digital era of magazines. How has your packaging changed to be able to appeal to your readers?
Well, we used to do a lot of print. We're only 2 national magazines in the U.S., Essence and Upscale, that actually printed on every newsstand. But we had to adapt to our customers and go digital, go online, go social media, go Upscale Mobile. So our name is now changed from Upscale Magazine to Upscale Mobile because everybody is now attached to their phone. So you have to meet people where they are.
Oh, great. That's very sure. Would you like to add to that in any way?
Why not? Thank you. So Mr. Bernard Bronner, I've known for about maybe a little bit longer than that, 12 years. And to be able to pick someone's brain like that, I'm a motivational speaker, I'm an author, I do business all over the world, #1 best-selling author, and to dive into the movie industry, to have access to his wisdom. We had lunch just now, and to start learning things. One of the most valuable things that you told me just a second ago had to do with everything like what you guys are talking about, having that face, that recognition, and being attached to something that is recognizable. I'll talk to the new people. How many people in here are new? You're here with a new project? Maybe first time. Am I the only person first time? Okay, all right, very cool. I'm gonna talk to the first timers. Nikki Michaud, stand up real quick. Nikki Michaud, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done over $1 billion in revenue in traditional marketing on a global scale. When I met Nikki hired me to work with her as a professional speaker, and she's a professional actress for over 20 years. And the third session that we had, I said, I'm not gonna take your money anymore because I'm gonna be your business partner in the future. This was 7 years ago. So you see someone who has talent, who's hungry to make that transition from one side of the screen to the other. She was going to do it with or without me. So as an investor, I poured into her. She's holding up our new movie. And here's the thing. We didn't have a company 8 months ago. So we went from thought to concept. The movie's here. The movie is here in Cannes. And we've already been accepted into other places. So what I did was I invest into people who are brilliant, who are going to do it with or without me. And that's what made the difference for me. I skipped a decade of information, a decade of education by teaming up with people who are absolutely gurus and they care. You know, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You meet someone like Bernard Bronner, you know that he cares because he pours into people like me who wants to help elevate as many people, on the planet. So that's my contribution. Again, I'm here to learn.
Oh yeah, a very great contribution. Moses, I'll take this back to you. Okay. He touched on something about recognizable faces, and you're interacting and dealing a lot with the biggest platforms. So when you have producers who cannot afford those faces but make great films, how do you switch up on your marketing and pushing that same great product to these platforms?
I think that's a really great question because, as you know, in Nollywood, there is no doubt that the facts and the stats are there. That is a star system that we run, or that the industry has become very accustomed to. And I don't think it's going to change very soon, but it doesn't mean that new opportunities haven't been created because of the streamers. We've seen time and time again small stories, but very well told, very well executed. They find a home, they find an audience. And I think that's one of the things the streamers have to be applauded for. I think that in the scenario that you've painted, what needs to happen, and we're increasingly telling producers, is intentionality from the start, not to be accidental. Like, you're going in, you're not going to be able to match, in terms of the star power, but what kind of unique selling points does that script have, that would inform the kind of abstract poster you're going to do? What kind of title art would stand out? What kind of 30-second, 45-second teaser can I do that would just blow people's minds? And they're not thinking about the star. They're thinking about the characters, in the film. So a lot of times we find that they're these great projects, but it's an afterthought of how to promote them, how to make them stand out. But we found instances where, okay, we understand, we've looked at it, your budget is, 50K, 70K. What are like those items that would make this stand? And we've seen, instances where it's worked. I'll give you an example, Breaded Life. A lot of people might not know it here, but Breaded Life at the
that's
time.
a great film.
Yes, at the time in 2021, it came to our desk. We're even a bit fortunate that they came to us when they had first cut. So there were a few things they could do. I agree with my brother here, Kenny, about, the photography from day one. They didn't have so much, but we had some things to work on, like, by seeing the first cut of this film. And just by having brainstorming sessions on, this is how we're going to position this, grass to grace story. This is how we're going to position the poster. It became one of the highest grossing films, in Nigeria that year, and one of the better performing films on Netflix, Africa. So as basic and as straightforward as it sounds, intentionality, it is so important. I think a lot of the creators get very into the technical details, the shots and where you're going to put lights and, the costumes, but like being intentional about how am I going to sell this film that is already disadvantaged from a star point, so critical.
Oh, great answer. Yeah. Theo, you are with a talent agency. Do you guys represent unknown talents with great potential, and how do you market them if you do? And if you don't, would that be a problem for you?
I love this question. No, it's not a problem. It's a challenge. As we're independent, right? We're not owned by anybody. So we kind of get to do what we want. We've had enough experience to be able to do that, and we're blessed to be in that position. As such, you can't take too many newcomers, because if you have just an agency, a company with all newcomers, it takes years and time to develop talent, to develop new talent. So we have a nice combination of established people and next generation people. And the next generation ones, you want them to have a good shot. They have to meet us halfway. This is a partnership. So they have to be sellable. But it is a fascinating challenge, and I really, really enjoy still working with people that don't have a name yet. Why? Because you could be more creative. Yep. Yeah. And then, and I always say leverage the brand. You're unknown, what do you got? Who have you worked with? What can we do? And the other thing is we're almost like, imagine like I love the job, right? It's like strength coaches for a sports franchise, independently, and we get to kind of pick what side of the apple we want to do, because we could do corporate, which is like the company, right? We could do the talent, right? We could do the director, we could do the showrunner, we could do below the line, we've done that, and then we could do the project itself, the titles, right? And the producer that has a slate, that's like the dream, right? Because they're almost like a mini studio. We could team up, we're like, all right, what you got? Okay, this is the show, okay, this is how we're gonna do it, and we've done it before where we're almost the through line that, we've worked with some independent studios, and then they'll have all these different kind of shows, and then everyone's goal is different too. That's the other thing. We begin with the end in mind. That's the key with everything that we do in our business, right? What is it? Is it just festival activation? So what do we want out of the festival? Do we want to make noise? Are we selling the title? Is that the goal? Do we want to be the #1 studio on the continent? Like, what's the goal, right? And then from there, we think we know how to hopefully get to the goal, and then we work backwards to get there. We create a plan, and then we basically go and strike against the plan. And then I was having a conversation with Kenny yesterday, and I was telling him that I am a very checklist person. So the reason that is because we come up with a plan. We are cognizant that the world changes every day, and the plan's a plan. You got to be nimble and be flexible, but we are fighting tooth and nail to execute that plan for the client. You know what I'm saying? And so we want to not overpromise, because we know a variety of variables can go wrong, but we try to execute every piece of the plan, and then we'll see what happens. And I'm a big fan of upscale, by the way.
I mean, and one thing I'll say, just to couple what everyone's saying about intentionality, that is so crucial. That combination of intentionality and also challenge, I think, is actually where the most creative work comes out. If that makes sense. Like when you actually don't have the star. Like a lot of people don't realize. I mean, when you think about Get Out, Daniel Kaluuya wasn't a star. You know, like the actual concept was the idea. That was the star. Get Out. That was the concept, you know, and I think things like that that's how you can have like eureka moments happen, where you don't have a star and you have to like really focus on like how creative can we be about selling something, you know, like how do we do it? Do we do it through social? Do we start like where does it start? How can we create buzz? How can we create sort of an excitement? You know, every studio executive hangs on, especially pre-COVID, their jobs hang on one thing: opening weekend. Yep. Right? Because after opening weekend, the film is out, and whether it's good or bad, you're done, right? But before opening weekend, it's about how you actually get me in the seat, and that is, if you don't have a star, you got to be creative about that. You got to figure out ways of doing that. Like, to me, I always love, like, you know, when you watch a trailer and, you know, you go see the movie, and sometimes you look at the movie like, that wasn't even in the trailer. And, like, people are mad about that. It's like, no, don't be mad. Like, they got you in the seat. You know, like, that's part of it. You know, so sometimes, you know, we get very precious about our projects, but it's like, in the end, it's like, how do we get people in seats, or how do we get people to click on, in the end, that's what the studios and the streamers really care about. And, you know, these guys have plans for it, we need visuals for it, but it all kind of has to work together.
And Mr. Bennett, how does that translate in the context of selling a magazine with very popular people versus with the boring stuff? You know, people want to see excitement. People want to read gossip. You look at the clickbait online. How does that translate for you?
Well, they say don't judge a book by its cover, but in upscale, you have to have somebody they recognize on the cover. You can put as many people on the inside, but you better have a famous person on the cover to get their attention. So.
Yeah, week for magazine.
Yes.
Great stuff.
So if you can, get the most popular person that you can afford. Yeah.
The most popular person you can afford. Great. Okay. So are you more?
No matter what project, get the most popular person that you can afford to attach them to that project.
And that makes all the difference for you.
Yes.
Okay, great. Before Moses leaves, I would like to throw it open to the audience if any questions, because he's going to run off soon.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Nikita from Botswana. I love what you were saying when you said that sometimes when you don't have a star, you have to make the concept a star. We saw this a couple of months ago with the film Cocaine Bear, where everyone was more focused on a bear being high on cocaine versus who was in the film. Absolutely. So as someone from Africa who mainly writes stories around culture and around feminism, these are social ideals. How, in your experience, have you seen those kind of films promote themselves and market themselves to become commercial almost? Because as much as it's these kind of films thrive in, for example, film festivals, etc., we are also trying to make films that can bring back money so that we can make more. Sure. So how, in your experience, have you seen them being marketed and commercialized? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting. When you have projects that are, let's say, more maybe activism based, or like sort of those type of ideas, I do think it can get tricky, because it's sort of like they're not always quote unquote the sexy stories kind of scenario. And I think in the end it becomes about sort of getting some kind of, someone to really understand, getting people to understand the concept. Because I think a lot of times when it comes to, and this sounds terrible to say, but people, even in films, still want to be quote unquote entertained. And even like in documentaries, which are, we work on a lot of documentaries as well as big movies, and, documentaries are so important for culture. They, introduce us to other worlds, they introduce us to other things. And I think it's like, there's some documentaries, of course, that sort of really take off, and there's some that don't. I think that one thing about the streamers, by the way, I think the streamers have become an amazing place for documentaries. And it isn't like there's certain things that I don't think you should put the same level of success on, if that makes sense. It's like, I mean, you need to be able to be more realistic about, okay, what is the plan for this film? Like, this film could be successful without it making, $100 million. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, so I think it's about having realistic expectations when you think about what the subject matter is, and trying to figure out, okay, what's the goals for that? And, is a streamer, and just so you know, not even just documentaries, a movie under like $30 million right now almost doesn't make sense to go to a theater anymore. So it's like, the climate has changed. And if you notice, like a lot of the films that are coming out right now, they're in that range. Even if the studios put them out, they're on VOD within 2 weeks. It's almost like they're just being put out just for the sake of it. So, the things are really changing. And I think for a documentary, for, things that are more activist driven, I think the streamers are absolutely the place to go, because you get more eyeballs too, for sure. So that's what I would say about that.
I feel like Moses, you might want to add to that before you run. We're going to squeeze all the juice out of you before you go.
I'm a theatrical advocate, but I hear Kenny. I think you have to be practical.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, specifically because we met in Cameroon and you've made an inroad there.
Yes.
We're now beginning to show their films in our cinemas. And they do a lot of advocacy projects. They're still coming from what they're going through and their struggles.
Yeah.
How are you looking to commercialize that? Or
I think that what was important for us to display, as an African country, partnering with another African country, is to kind of, provide platforms for people to, express themselves, and that their stories too can be told. And I think that's what, again, the streamers have to be applauded for, that you could try things. I think the film that we did, first film that we did from Cameroon was called Fisherman's Diary. And, it was a really very well made film, but very strong and quite dark. But it found its way to the top 10 in Nigeria, and that said something. It also tracked in East Africa, and it just showed that there were stories to tell there. I'm proud to say we're doing the first Cameroonian theatrical release of that, engagement that we had. From the learnings we've gotten from the streaming and the engagements we've had with the filmmakers, I think it's also about filmmakers understanding some of the commercial imperatives, like why it's important to do something that is crowd pleasing. From a commercial standpoint, you want to be able to do more. And like Kenny says, be realistic. Like, you want to tell this very important, strong story. Maybe theatrical would not be the way to go. It's not practical. You're probably not going to make as much money. And in a territory where we're getting increasing links between the box office value and what you're offered from a streamer, you've got to be very careful, because if the film doesn't do well theatrically, then you've shot yourself in the foot. You don't get the best deal out. It might have well been better to go straight to streaming. So these are the dynamics. It's ever evolving, ever changing. It will be wrong of me to say, as much as I'm an advocate for theatrical, to say that it is not spectacle. It's spectacle now that people are looking for, to pay, 2 or 3 times the amount you pay for streaming, and you can watch thousands of films. But for the cinema going experience, you pay that much, you want to see real spectacle. And I think that's what, filmmakers have to continue to juggle. I think it's also important in juggling all of that you don't become, indebted to just the streaming, platform or the streaming outlet. So it's got to be constant engagement like this. It's got to be, relearning and unlearning, all the things that we say, but trying to find out, okay, what kind of film do I want to do, and can it be multi-platform, or can it be very specific to platform? And like we're talking about here, packaging, marketing, promoting, what kind of tactics do I use to get the most out of the content?
Okay,
and I'm
great.
going to go now. Thank you so much.
It's interesting you mentioned Fisherman's Diary, because how I started my journey with the Cameroon film space, or how I got introduced, was through the same film. And I clicked on it on Netflix because I saw Ramsey Noah's face, not knowing it was not a Nigerian film. And then I got introduced to the talent in Cameroon, and just, I think about a month after, the founder of the festival reached out to come, do classes there, and I accepted because I had seen and I got introduced, not even knowing they're next door to us. Yes. But I had no idea they had an industry until I saw that, because Ramsey Noah, a very famous actor from Nigeria, was the face they used to sell it. So that really speaks a lot to what we're saying about using known faces.
One thing I would say, what genre seems to really do it well and has been doing it great for the last 7-8 years is horror. I feel like horror has somehow really spoken to the idea of concept, and have gotten really good at selling concepts. And even still now, I think that's why a lot of horror films are still getting released theatrically, because they're doing well. And again, that's no stars, but it's concept. So I feel like that's also a place where, I don't know what horror's going on in Nigeria, but what the genre is happening. But I'm just saying, I think that's just an area where there's still a lot of creativity and a lot of theatrical success.
Oh, great. Moses, I'll let you go officially, so don't hold you down. Thank you so much. Hi, Akram. Oh, français. Comment tu t'appelles? I don't speak French, sorry, I was just messing around. So just a few words.
Go for it, we can translate it.
You could translate.
Alors la question c'est quoi?
Vas-y, ask the question.
Ask the question.
I can't hear you. I don't speak.
No, you can ask the question and I'll translate. Yeah.
No, just to introduce himself first. So get to know him.
Ah d'accord, ok, très bien. Bonjour déjà. Alors, je m'appelle Akram, je suis un producteur, réalisateur et scénariste algérien. Voilà, j'ai fait mes études de réalisation en France, et après j'ai décidé de rentrer dans mon pays pour faire des films algériens, et des films qui parlent de l'Algérie et la vie algérienne. Je vais parler un peu du cinéma algérien. C'est vrai, à l'époque, on avait un cinéma qui existe dans le monde entier, dans les années de 60, 70, les années 80. Malheureusement, à partir de les 80, où il y avait la décennie noire, c'est la période où a tué le cinéma algérien. C'est-à-dire, on n'avait plus de films, plus de salles de cinéma, plus de production. Mais bon, ça fait presque 20 ans qu'on bat pour ça. Oui.
Donc, je vais traduire ce que Akram a dit. So, Akram Zakba is a filmmaker from Algeria. He was actually in France for a while. He studied filmmaking in France and then moved back to Algeria to actually promote the Algerian film industry. So he was telling us that the Algerian film industry has been kind of very the Algerian film industry has been a bit, let's say, slowing for some time. So he's trying now to help it move forward and create more opportunities for Algerian filmmakers. Vas-y, continue.
Voilà, alors je continue. Quand je vous avais dit que le cinéma algérien, il n'y avait plus de cinéma depuis la décennie noire, la période où il y avait du terrorisme.
There hasn't been, c'est quel an, c'est 1980, 90?
Du 90 jusqu'à 2000.
Okay. So for almost a decade, for 10 years, during the black decade, if I can say so, there is no cinema, there is no movies, there's nothing in Algeria from 1990 to 2000. So now they're back in the game and they're trying to make it up.
Voilà. Et je ne veux pas parler de ça parce que c'est du passé maintenant. On va parler de maintenant. L'Algérie et le cinéma algérien. Elle est où par rapport au cinéma du monde? Elle est où par rapport au cinéma d'Afrique? Et elle va être où? Et notre but là, autant que des jeunes, Et bien sûr, avec l'aide de notre ministre de la Culture, qu'elle est nommée comme ministre, ça fait presque 12 ans, son but, c'est de reprendre le cinéma des années 80 et 70 et les 60.
Voilà. Donc, the objective here is not to talk about what happened that crushed the Algerian film industry, but there's an incentive and there is a direction. Oh, sorry. There's an incentive and there's direction from the Ministry of Culture in Algeria to go back to the 60s, 70s, and 80s when the Algerian film industry was very strong, and using the youth today in Algeria to move forward.
Alors, le but que je suis là déjà à Cannes et à Afro Cannes, et c'est pour moi c'est un honneur d'être avec eux et avec vous dans ce meeting, c'est de parler de cinéma algérien, c'est de parler de la culture algérienne, c'est de parler des films algériens qui appartiennent de l'histoire de l'Afrique. Parce qu'on n'oublie pas que l'Algérie, c'est le nord de l'Afrique, alors c'est l'Afrique pour moi. Et la seule chose qui m'a donné cette courage de venir ici et de parler de ça, parce que ça fait un certain moment qu'on attend.
Donc, son objectif, coming here at Afro Cannes, being here at Cannes is an opportunity for him to talk about Algerian film, Algerian industry, but also be part of the overall discussion about African film, all right? So what he wants to do right now is basically helping, shining the light on Algerian filmmakers, Algerian film industry, and the Algerian brand and how to sell Algerian content.
Et si je suis là, le plus important pour moi de dire au monde entier que le cinéma algérien, elle va venir, elle va revenir et elle va être le cinéma des Oscars des années 60 et 70. Et pour dire à notre ministre qu'elle est là pour nous, pour qu'on peut avancer dans ce monde, nous aussi on est là pour vous aider et pour être avec vous et pour ramener le cinéma à sa place, la place des années 60 et 70. Voilà.
Donc, just to repeat what he said, and he's very insistent on the fact that being here at Cannes is the opportunity to say to the world that Algerian cinema of the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s that had a lot of visibility across the world. I wasn't there, but I think that people who have more experience in the film industry know that in the 60s and 70s there are many Algerian filmmakers that won at the Oscars, at the Caesars, and so on. So the Ministry of Culture in Algeria and himself here have taken let's say the decision to make sure that they're back into that path. Am I right there?
Yes.
Okay. On continue? Oui, vas-y.
Voilà, je ne sais pas, est-ce que vous avez des questions?
Do you have anybody has any question here? No, we don't. Yes, you do.
This is for him. Yes. It's very important as we have the divide between North Africa and the rest of Africa. How does he intend to even begin to fix that beyond selling his film? I mean, it's going to be hard, seeing as we already have such a divide. How do we begin to fix that?
Pardon. La question qui est là, c'est tout simplement de dire que oui, tu es venu vendre le cinéma algérien et de le remettre dans le contexte du cinéma africain, mais avec, disons, l'historique des divisions qui est entre l'Afrique du Nord et l'Afrique subsaharienne, qui était même parlé ce matin pendant la présentation de Noël. Comment penses-tu pouvoir faire pour, disons, réconcilier et remettre le cinéma algérien dans le contexte du cinéma africain?
Alors, premièrement, il n'y a pas une division entre le cinéma algérien et le cinéma africain. Parce que là, quand on parle de l'art et on parle des films, on parle de cinéma, il n'y a pas de frontières. On est d'accord. La seule chose, il faut voir, il faut voir l'envie de faire des coproductions. Et c'est ça ce qui est ouvert actuellement au niveau de l'Algérie. On a une structure qui appelle les coproductions avec n'importe quel pays. C'est pas seulement de l'Afrique ou l'Europe. L'essentiel, il y aura un sujet qui est bien traité, il y aura un sujet présent et un sujet qui donne en valeur le film tel-même ou l'histoire. Alors, on n'est pas diffusé. On attend des gens qui cherchent de la coproduction.
So he's saying that basically what is happening here is that, what would make, there's no actual divide per se, But however, what could, let's say, help further collaboration between countries, especially Algeria and other African countries, basically co-production between either individual production companies or in some way countries, all right? So this is the start of, let's say, bridging the gap. Vas-y, continue. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, could you ask if Algeria has any treaties planned?
Est-ce qu'il y a des traités de coproduction entre l'Algérie et d'autres pays africains? Et d'autre part, quelles sont les modalités de coproduction entre individus ou bien entre sociétés et d'autres, disons, producteurs ici? Quels sont les avantages? Est-ce que vous avez des...
Alors, bon, les avantages de la coproduction, on sait très très bien que nous, au niveau de l'Algérie, on a toujours des aides à la production, c'est-à-dire c'est des aides qui sera versées par le ministère de la Culture pour aider ce film à 60%, c'est-à-dire les 40% qu'il reste.
Donc, what he's saying, Shuma and the rest of the audience here is that, you know, and what you ask is that in Algeria, for example, they have funding mechanism, government funding mechanism, sorry, is that okay? Government funding mechanism that offer up to 60% funding for projects that are partially, I guess, done with an Algerian producer and a partner. Continue.
Voilà. Alors voilà, il y a 60% du ministère de la Culture et 40% de le coproducteur. Il n'y a pas d'écrit, sauf que vous avez une boîte de production algérienne, vous se mettez d'accord avec la boîte de production algérienne et c'est la boîte de production algérienne, c'est elle qu'elle s'occupe de tous les financements après. Voilà.
So how it goes is very simple. So as I say, the 60% funding from the government, from the Algerian government, and then the 40% from the co-producers. So the Algerian company take care of the, let's say, reaching with the government and get the necessary funding. Does it make sense? There are questions here. Il y a des questions?
No, I just have a question for the panel.
Someone else?
Yeah, for the other panels. I heard Moses make a comment. He said that you have to be very intentional with every story idea as a producer. And Theo also said that you have to think about the end and start from the end at the beginning, which I 100% agree. I'm a film producer. I've produced 2 films that have been released theatrically and on the streaming. But one of the things that I think I really want to explore a little bit more, which I don't think we've really gotten into, and I'm curious as a producer, is he says that every good story will find a home. That is true. But at what price? Because you'll produce your movie and it'll be very strong, it'll be very good, and it'll be X, but the buyers will always often offer X minus 1, and you don't recoup. And I think anybody who's a serious producer doesn't care to say, you know, I got my movie released on Netflix or whatever it is. What you really want to do is recoup for your investors. So when you have that discrepancy where you realize that the vast majority of the buyers, there are no there's no black sales agents, at least that I know of. And I worked at William Morris Independent for 4 years, so I'd never met any one. So when you realize that there are no black sales agents, and those buyers typically are going to be instrumental in valuing your film, how do you overcome that very difficult hurdle? You can raise your capital, you can make your movie, and Mr. Bronner had a very good point. You know, you have to have a very visible, recognizable name. But if you realize that the buyers are not necessarily going to be very diverse, and you have the best actors that you know that your demographic really likes, but the buyers are not really in tune with who your actors are. You're ahead of the curve as a producer because you're supposed to be thinking who's going to like my movie, who's going to want to watch my movie, and you're targeting your demographic. But there's a very important intermediary that is between you and the audience, that is the buyer. How do you overcome that extremely important obstacle so that you can not only recoup your capital but also have the audience being able to watch your movie?
Who's going to speak to that?
Well, you know, I can't totally speak to the dynamics of all of this, but what I can speak to is that the ongoing challenge of understanding and, sales agents, for instance, understanding what the content is and the value of it. Because that also translates with marketing with any studio, to be honest. It's, you get people of color, and I can even speak on this, I think people were very surprised The Woman King made $100 million. And I think it's just going to take more of that, to be honest. Because,
Respectfully, that's a studio. You got John Boyega, you got Viola Davis.
Yeah, but they didn't expect 100 million though.
100%, but you have a black director and you have a very strong lead actor.
Right.
And by the way, they wouldn't have done it if John Boyega wasn't even in the lead role, which
Right.
is crazy. But therein lies how many of us are going to
be in that position. Right.
By the way, I apologize. I wasn't going to, but this is such an important thing
Sure.
because, there are a lot of producers who I'm sure who are here.
Yeah.
And I don't know who is starting off for the first time or
Yeah,
who's
yeah.
accomplished. Literally, I was here at the last Cannes in 2019, in 2019 before the pandemic.
Sure.
And I was pitching, I'm doing a movie later on this year. I have a great cast. But it's a hip hop movie. And a very important financier said, Milan, you should get 50 Cent in the movie. Get him to be your lead.
Right.
It's like, okay, why don't I get Jay-Z to be in the movie? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's
Same difference, right?
Because at this point, if you have 2 million or 3 million to be able to, and one can say, okay, you get this individual, then maybe you could do your pre-sales and offset it, but whatever. But, that's not the reality for a lot of producers
No, of course.
who may never have produced a movie before or who may not know how to get. And by the way, there is an extremely difficult obstacle to get to the 50 Cent or the Chris Rock who may want to read your script, but you have the agent and the manager. And the reality is they don't necessarily appreciate, black filmmakers.
Yeah.
And you can shake your head, but it's true.
Yeah.
You can offer, even if you offer real capital.
Sure.
And I know this because I worked at William Morris in Los Angeles.
Right.
So I can tell you, if you submit your script, they're going to look at who's the director, and if it's not going to be like a Christopher Nolan, they might not necessarily pay attention to it. But the fact of the matter is, there's not an appreciation of the producer or the actor or the director until that person becomes like a Viola Davis or a John Boyega. And then at that point, they're like very interested in representing the talent. And then if you become a big producer, that's when they want to pay attention to you.
Sure.
But the gap from that point to that point is going to be very difficult. So how do the majority of the producers, for those people on the panel who produce films, and sell them to the streamers and to the studios, how do you overcome that? Because I think that's me, even though I've done it, I'm always curious what people who have experience have done, because we can always learn.
This is my opinion, right? There's no magic pill, right? I just feel like in our market, in the United States, we're very fortunate because you can think of something, brainstorm with some friends, and make it happen. And I've done that, right? If you tell me now, this version of me, in 2002, that I would sell out the Chinese theater 10, 12 years in a row, have a 10-day festival, have tens and thousands of people fly in from different places, promote it myself, we do it ourselves. We do it ourselves. I'm not saying that's the path for everyone. I'm not saying it's the easy path, but in that market, listen, I did a screening at the Egyptian Theater on the 5th year of our festival. And they were laughing at us because we have no money. We ain't got no money. We're not the Egyptian, but we were bold, maybe stupid, kids at the time, but we're like, we're pulling up. That's it. We're gonna do this screening and we're gonna have this festival. And they took us as a joke. There's a gentleman who took us as a joke and he's like, well, your festival's nice, but there's another festival that's more leveraged, has a lot of capital. And I was like, oh, damn, I want to be known as a festival that's got a lot of capital one day. That's a long story to tell you that we just made it happen. And then we had that Egyptian theater, and then it blew up. The festival blew up. And then there's people that we know that make content that maybe we don't like, but someone likes it, the audience likes it. They booked the theaters. Tyler did that. And then he built his audience, and he had some food in the back, and then they kept coming. So listen to me. I think just with any business, I'm speaking for the United States market there, if we have something, we're passionate enough about it, I think we can find a path to get people to watch the film. We can find a path. If it's theatrical, we can raise the money. We can sell products. We can get a brand sponsor, a partner. Hair Love, right? That short film. That became a business, Hair Love, right? Cherry. We saw the short. He got dubbed somehow. They go all the way. They get the Oscar. And now that is a business. Intellectual property, magazines, books, story, volumes, new ways of it. I'm not saying it's easy, but that's a market where in other places, I'm from Haiti, I don't know if you could do that. So, take it for what it's worth.
One good thing about your question is so many companies and executives now are going to what they call just data-driven information. So now it doesn't matter if they know who the person is, if you got all the data there, if you got their engagement, their reach with social media, their YouTube videos, every bit of data, they're making all of these decisions now data-driven. So they don't have to know who the person is. They're not caring who the people are now. All they care about is the data behind the people. They want people that can reach their audience. And if you give them that data, they're good.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point about the data. It's something I was actually going to bring up too. It's like, even when we're working on projects, that comes up all the time. Sort of like, okay, just what, in regards to social media and like what the followers are, all those things actually do make a difference now, specifically. And maybe, and here's the thing, you have to also realize we're always going to be dealing with, for a long time, the idea of people not getting our content or what the story we were trying to tell. That's always going to be the case. But of course, it's always going to grow. We're always growing. There wasn't a Jordan Peele 5 years ago. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, people are always going to like jump out of the bag. But I think, like Theo said, that is one thing about America. America does allow for that out of the box situation. And I think like that's as producers, as directors, filmmakers in general, I think we have to take that approach, especially we don't have any money, we don't have any stars, so it's about starting to think outside those lines. I think America does give you the opportunity to do that more than most places.
Oui, bon, je vais prendre la parole, j'ai une petite question et après je vous laisse repartir. Pour Monsieur Akram Zagba, je suis productrice camerounaise et française, et vous avez parlé tout à l'heure du cinéma algérien qui voulait retrouver toutes ses couleurs comme dans les années 60, 70, 80, et le cinéma camerounais est dans la même situation. Donc ma question est de savoir, aujourd'hui nous sommes basés en France, nous travaillons beaucoup en Afrique. Nous avons des gros projets pour le Cameroun avec ma partenaire, des films, des séries. Et pour être concret, on se connaît bien entre nous. Cameroun, Algérie, on a une histoire assez commune depuis les indépendances à aujourd'hui. Exactement. Et je prends pour mot ce que vous avez dit, à savoir nous sommes les bienvenus chez vous, vous êtes les bienvenus chez nous. J'aimerais que de cette journée, nous mettions concrètement en place une certaine renaissance du cinéma camerounais pour notre part, parce que nous avons aussi eu un CNC dans les années 60, 70, 80. Nous avons connu la chute économique dans les années 90. Et aujourd'hui, au niveau du Cameroun, il y a une vraie dynamique, de par les différentes régions, de relancer l'industrie du cinéma. Donc, je suis en fait en train de vous dire, soyons concrets, nous le sommes, nous vous attendons. Merci.
D'accord. Je réponds. Premièrement, merci pour ces mots, qui sincèrement c'est touchant. Il y a un truc seulement, je veux l'expliquer à tout le monde. Là, autant que je suis en train de parler sur le cinéma algérien, je suis en train de vendre le cinéma algérien, comme elle a dit Prudence. Enfin, je ne suis pas en train de vendre le cinéma algérien. Je parle de cinéma algérien. J'ai aucun lien avec l'État algérien. Je suis pas politicien. Je suis pas en train de parler autant que politicien et de donner des mots que je suis obligé de le dire. Là, je suis en train de parler autant que réalisateur, autant que algérien et autant que producteur. Je suis un homme de cinéma. J'adore le cinéma. J'adore mon pays et j'invite mon pays à le reprendre sa place. Et c'est pas seulement l'Algérie, c'est l'Afrique. Je veux que le cinéma africain, elle sera présente partout. Parce que pour moi, c'est une jalousie quand je pars dans les festivals du monde entier et je ne trouve pas le cinéma africain, algérien ou africain. Alors je suis pour le cinéma algérien, je suis pour le cinéma africain. Vive le cinéma, vive le cinéma, vive le cinéma africain. Voilà.
Ok, merci. Ma question aussi pour M. Akram. Je vois qu'il y a une volonté manifeste aujourd'hui de réveiller le cinéma algérien. Ce que je voudrais savoir, c'est quel a été le déclic et qu'est-ce qui a été mis en place? Quelles sont les étapes fondamentales au réveil en fait de ce cinéma algérien? Merci.
I'm going to introduce here. This is a Beninese filmmaker. He just wanted to know, since you decided that the Algerian film industry has to go back to what it used to be, and you want to say it now, what has happened for that decision to come about? Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé pour que ça, voilà.
Je pense qu'il a parlé en français.
Oui, vas-y, vite.
Parce que lui, j'ai eu compris. Je vous avais pas compris de toute façon. D'accord. Alors, parce que j'en ai besoin. Merci. Alors, vous m'avez posé la question, c'est quoi le déclenchement qui nous a laissé de parler de ça, d'accord? Le déclenchement, c'est depuis l'arrivée de la nouvelle ministre et avec son travail, elle nous a donné de la confiance, elle a cru à nous et elle voulait qu'elle reprenne le cinéma algérien. Alors c'est grâce à notre ministre, et si je dis grâce à notre ministre, c'est pas parce que j'ai une connaissance personnelle avec elle ou je suis en train de me montrer que je parle politiquement entre guillemets. Là, je parle du côté de l'art. C'est une dame, c'est vrai, elle n'a pas d'expérience en art, mais elle était là pour reprendre l'art. Et c'est ça, enfin, vous savez quoi? Quand vous avez confiance à quelqu'un et vous trouvez quelqu'un, il est en train.
Just to translate what Akram just said, the reason why there is a will from the to change the narrative about the Algerian cinema, going back to its glory days 30 years ago, it's just because the current Ministry of Culture has decided that cinema was supposed to become kind of the driving force behind, let's say, rewriting the narrative about Algeria. So she's actually the person that is moving and supporting young filmmakers, and young filmmakers and directors and producers in Algeria to continue doing work. So it's the current Ministry of Culture. Am I right there? C'est vrai, c'est bien ça.
Oui, exactement. Et voilà, comme je lui ai dit, c'est la confiance que... Enfin, c'est pas une confiance plutôt, c'est... elle est en train de réaliser nos rêves. Et notre rêve, c'est de faire des films. Et notre ministre de la Culture, elle est là, elle nous a dit, avec 3 mots dernièrement sur les panels de cinéma et la création des droits d'artistes en Algérie, ça fait 3 jours, il y avait une semaine à peu près, ces panels, elle a dit, je suis là, je suis avec vous, foncez, faisons des films, faire promouvoir le cinéma algérien et avancer avec le cinéma algérien. Et je suis là avec vous à 100%. C'est des mots qu'ils ont sortis de cœur et c'est ça enfin, c'est le but déjà que je suis là. Et c'est le but de parler de ça. Et par exemple, je te donne un exemple, si j'avais pas confiance et l'objectif de prudence avec Afro, je pense pas que je vais venir de l'Algérie sur mes frais personnels pour que je serai ici. Voilà, je peux dire que ça.
Okay, so with that, we'll have to call it a wrap for the session. Thank you, gentlemen, for the great insight and expose. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Much love is what we need upon us. Let them come together with the unity among us. UNITY, it's a unity. Yana, this a good work, you know what I'm saying? Umoja ni nguvu, utengano udhaifu, tukisimama.